All right, well, today I wanted to talk about the difference in treatment from when I was visibly balding, when I was fully bald, versus having hair. I started balding when I was about 19. Male pattern baldness ran in my family on both sides. My dad would shave his head, and my mom's dad also had significant hair loss, so it just ran in my genes. I was destined for it. I was destined for the Norwood Reaper. Growing up, I had really long hair, and it was something that I was really known for. Long hair was like my identity. I had the classic Justin Bieber style haircut going on. Hair was always one of my best features back then. In the span of about 3 years, I went from the appearance of a full head of hair to about a Norwood 4 with a massively receding hairline. It wasn't noticeable when it started receding until the Norwood Reaper grabbed it by the balls and swept it back into the depths of Norwood Cemetery. For a while, I would grow out the hair on top and the sides to cover me in my massively receding hairline, and it just looked absolutely terrible. My hair looked like a balding rat's nest, and that's just being nice. I started to wear hats more and more, and the feeling of being a hat prisoner was also unbearable as well. I'm going to make an entire video about being a hat prisoner and the mental struggle I had during certain periods of time. I can personally attest that the balding grown out comb over look just doesn't work. It's by far the worst of the three. Any slight gust of wind would blow it back faster than Brittany Renner taking PJ Washington's money. During those 2 years where my hair had the appearance of visibly balding, I can tell you, I got zero play. I may have had one girl show me interest during that year, and it was definitely someone I had zero attraction to. I was also very overweight at this time, so this was also a major part of it. When you have a balding comb over kind of look, it just looks really unkempt and unhealthy, and it looks like you're trying to just hold on to the last strands of hair in a really desperate way. When I transferred to a new university, I had shaved my head completely bald a few weeks before the start of the semester. That summer, I'd made it a point to try and lose some weight, but I was still very heavy. At the time, I wanted to give the shaved head look a try. I didn't want to rock the balding look anymore, as it just got to the point of no return. I can say shaving my head for the first time actually felt really relieving. When you've been rocking a balding comb over for years, the weight of that hair is just really weighing on your psyche. I can't really explain it too well, but I think when you're constantly looking in the mirror, you're always wearing a ton of hairspray. I was always whenever I was outside, I don't care where it was, for those 2 years, I was so subconscious and worried about the wind blowing it all over and messing it up and exposing my massive island of a receding hairline that I had up there. It was just kind of crazy. And I also everywhere I went, I made sure I had an extra hat in my car, one in my room, wherever I was, I made sure I had a hat around just in case my hair got blown all over the place. So when I found out about Topic, I used it religiously. It was kind of funny. My mom I was asking my mom if she had she knew something that would, help kind of conceal the hair loss, because it was just really getting to me. I was, like I said, I was pretty young at the time, and I was just really going through an identity crisis, not like a midlife crisis, but an early life crisis. That's how I felt. Like I said, when I started using Topic, was about a Norwood 4. And I can tell you, when you're a Norwood 4, or pressing a Norwood 4, Topic just doesn't work very well, because you're pouring it over your receded hairline. And I was starting to thin the crown. The only place in my hair that was decently full was the middle part. It was kind of funny. It was I had a landing strip. It was, I don't know, it was crazy. My hair in the crown was starting to thin. Not as it wasn't a full on bald there, but it was starting to thin. So I would put some Topic in the crown, and then I would put some Topic in the receding parts, and it was just brutal. And there were really two big problems when I shaved my head. One, I was very overweight at the time, and the bald look just doesn't work if you're overweight. If you're overweight and you have a shaved head, it's a double whammy. It's like Homer Simpson. It's like seeing Homer Simpson on the screen. It's just I don't know. It's just not a good look. The second problem was that my skin is pretty pale most of the year. I have pretty fair skin. I'm mostly German, Polish, English. And, the bald look really made me look like a fat, bald, powdered Mr. Clean donut. If I had been in better shape, I think things might have been a little bit better. But honestly, I just didn't suit the bald look. It just didn't suit me at the time. I think I look much better with hair now, and I wasn't going to go to a tanning salon to get a tan. You know, a few of my friends told me to do that at the time. I remember they were telling me, "Oh man, just like work out, get jacked, and shave your head and get a tan." And that was like the advice that I saw online as well. Like some of the advice online was like to get a deep tan, and I don't know, like to be honest, like I'm pretty pale most of the year, and I just can't tan that well. I can never really get a deep dark tan. And also tanning will do a lot of damage to your skin. But another part of like having a shaved head, especially in college, is that you stand out like a sore thumb, and you honestly just look 10 to 20 years older than everyone else. Like I felt like a middle-aged man being trapped in a 22-year-old's body. I remember during the first week at my new university, I had transferred from a school I went to about 4 hours away. I was in a meeting for a club that I was joining, and there was like a girl seated next to me who had asked me if I was the club representative. I remember saying like, "No, I'm like, what made you say that?" And then she said, "Yeah, no, I just, you don't look like a student." I don't know. I also remember a distinct time when we were supposed to pair up with, partners of two for this writing class. This was like the second week of university, and I got paired with this girl behind me, and she was probably like, I think she was a freshman or sophomore in college, and she was blonde and overall pretty attractive. And there was another fairly attractive girl that was sitting next to her, and then there was this other guy that was seated directly next to me that was kind of like nerdy looking. I remember the look on her face when I turned around to face her after we got paired up, and it was like this look of like instant disgust. It was just crazy. She looked at me like I was like some freak of nature, like I was like a Shrek. And it was just kind of brutal. But the next thing that happened, like literally a minute later, she had said to the girl next to her, she's like, "Hey, like, why don't I just work with you?" And she pointed to me and the nerdier looking guy and said, "And you two can work together." And we all just kind of agreed with it. And then I turned my seat around and just started working with him. That was kind of a big eye opener, because I can say now with hair, and after losing a lot of weight, this type of thing wouldn't happen. But I think when you're unattractive, and whether that's because you're balding or you're overweight, I think a large part of it had to do with me being bald, but also being overweight. I just felt like I was, she didn't want to work with me because of those reasons. Yeah, it's just kind of brutal. The next big opener, this was like a turning point for me, is when I went to a friend's apartment for a club that I had joined, and he was having a party. So I was in the bathroom, and I'd overheard my friend talking to this girl out in the hallway. They had no idea that I was in the bathroom. Like there was probably 20 to 25 people there. There was music playing. There was a decent amount of people, mostly from the club. I remember her asking him, this was a girl that wasn't in the club. Like she was like a friend of my friend's girlfriend. And what really hit me was I remember her asking like, "Hey, like who's that old guy?" And my friend was like, "What are you talking about?" I think he was just trying to deflect it. And she was like, "Yeah, like the bald guy." And when she said this, like I was the only bald guy at this party. Most guys don't go bald, and most guys don't experience balding when they're in college. So, I had seen everyone else that was at the party, and every guy had a full head of hair. So when she said this, like I was like washing my hands and like looking in the mirror, and this like, I don't know, this is like a life changer for me, but like this really like hit me to the core. Like I was looking in the mirror, and one, I didn't like, how overweight I was. I felt disgusting, but also I didn't like being bald. Like having a shaved head just didn't suit me. And like really my identity was my hair. Like my hair was, I always had long hair growing up, and, throughout school, throughout high school, and even my freshman year of college. And when I heard this, it really, really shook me to the core, like hit me like a ton of bricks, and it definitely stung. Like I'm someone who has decently thick skin. I think you have to have thick skin if you're going to be, if you have a YouTube channel, but something about that really like hit me to the core. Just made me feel really bad. Made me feel super old. and disgusting, to be honest. Like, it's like I'd shaved my head and done what people said I should do. Just shave it, bro. Just shave it, bro, and build some muscle, and you'll be great, and you'll pull all the women you want. And I mean, like I said, that advice can work for some people who can naturally pull off the bald look better. I think some guys can pull off the bald look and they're comfortable with it, and more power to them. Like, you won in a way. But after this, like, because it really struck me to the core, like, I definitely started to develop a deeper insecurity about it. I started wearing a baseball cap pretty religiously after that. It's interesting because when I started wearing the hat more, I felt like a hat prisoner, because I didn't want to show off to the world again that I was bald. So I would grow the hair out on the sides and the back, just similar to what I did before. But at this point, I was like a Norwood 4, so I couldn't even really, grow it out. And I didn't want to rock the balding look. So I just like wore a hat religiously from like the time I got up to the time I went to bed. Like, I did not take off this hat. Like, I had this hat everywhere I went. I don't care if it was to class. I don't care if it was to see a friend with my family. Like, family gatherings, like, I was always wearing the hat. Like, I remember my brother graduated he got his master's that next summer, and like, I wore that hat, to his graduation. Like, the only place I couldn't wear the hat was when I was a security guard. So it was kind of crazy, but I would grow out my hair again super long when I was a security guard. I wasn't able to wear a hat. So I experienced like the balding comb over look again. It was just kind of crazy. But one thing I did notice is that once when I was wearing the hat, it was like I felt like I fit in. It's interesting, but because when I started wearing the hat more, I noticed subtly better treatment from women and people. Like, I didn't feel like a fat, bald walking Shrek. I felt somewhat normal, because when I started to wear the hat more, I noticed I didn't feel like a fat, balding Shrek. I felt somewhat normal about it. I felt somewhat normal when I was wearing the hat. I started to grow my hair out, but in the back of my mind, I still thought of myself as a bald guy, and I got to the point where I just really wanted to do something about it. During that period of time when I kept my head shaved, I got zero looks from women. And I think part of this was because, this was a college campus, and, girls in their late teens and early 20s, like, they don't want to be with a bald guy. Like, that's not even something they're thinking about. Like, most guys aren't even balding at that age. Like I said, I had zero interest, for those couple years. And like I said, also when I had my head completely shaved, like, I got zero looks from women. And when I tried to strike up conversations in class or at other times when I was on campus, I would either get like completely ignored or I would just get one word answers. And, there would be some girls that would be nice and polite, that would, have a conversation with you. But, I could tell that they had zero interest. And I think part of it was, like I said, me being overweight, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was a bald guy, and, on college campus, girls they're not used to that. So that next summer, after that first year at my new university, I had got my first hair transplant. And this was a decision I thought about for a couple months, and I kind of just like did my research on YouTube, and I just really just jumped into it. I really wanted to just get in that seat and get a hair transplant really bad. Which I obviously don't recommend now. And there's a hair transplant guide that I have, hair transplant guide video that I put up for if you guys want to watch that. So once I got my first hair transplant, I had to shave my head completely for the transplant, and I was a security guard at the time. So for about 2 months, I had to sit at a desk in a building that was like flowing with people coming in and out all day, and I had to interact with them. So this is a brutal time for me because I had the scar on the back of my head, and it was noticeable for a few weeks. But I was wearing a hat for a while, and having to shave my head completely again was brutal. And the place that I did security at, it had like a mix of different people. There was some younger people and younger professionals in their mid to late 20s. There are people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. But in general, like, I noticed that, with being completely bald again, until the new hair grafts grew in, I noticed like zero interest from women. like zero interest when I wasn't wearing a hat. And when you experience that for the first time, like you experience like wearing a hat and getting a decent level of interest from women, and then when you're not wearing the hat, you're getting significantly less. It's kind of brutal, and it makes you realize that like hair is so important. Like hair is life in a lot of ways for the vast majority of guys. So after about 3 months, the hair started growing in, and I was very happy about this, and I started immediately noticing a difference in how women responded to me. So my first hair transplant was 2000 FUT grafts, and they were able to like cover my receding hairline. And with Topic, I was able to grow the hair to a somewhat medium length that made it like appear like I had a decently full head of hair. Like the doctor really focused on the hairline the most and built in a little bit of density behind it. Like that summer, I'd also made it a point to lose weight, and I was able to lose a decent amount. So this also really helped. But through the combination of both of these, I noticed that girls were starting to show a little more interest in me, whether it was in class, it was walking around campus. I guess it didn't hurt that I'm fairly tall, but I really think having hair really made the biggest difference for me. I think once I had a hairline again, girls were just able to focus more on my face, and when I didn't have as much fat on my face, they were able to like kind of maintain more eye contact with me. Like once I had my hairline back and it looked like I had a pretty decent head of hair, when I was walking on campus, I would walk by, girls occasionally, and they would, give me a smile, or they'd, give me eye contact, look me in the eyes, as opposed to before, like when I walked past girls when I had a shaved head, like they would look straight ahead and they would not look at me whatsoever. Vice versa, when I was in class, like I noticed like when I had a shaved head, like even girls that were sitting directly next to me on my left and my right, like they would look straight ahead and they would never look my way. Whereas, when I was in class with a hair, with hair, I noticed that, girls would like occasionally glance my way. I would subtly get into conversations with them. They would smile. I started like, hanging out with a girl from class, like after I recovered from my first hair transplant. And it was just a world of a difference to me. Another thing to keep in mind is when you shave your head bald, you honestly just look much, much older, and younger women in their early to mid 20s, they just don't look your way. I mean, at least that was my experience. I think subconsciously they probably think that you are much older than them, and it just makes you look less attractive in general, just to keep it a buck. I also started to grow some facial hair as well back then, and that I can also say that made a difference as well, because when I was like a clean shaven bald guy, this made me look like the bald head made me look super old, and then like the clean shaven face like made me look pretty young. So it was like a really bad like contrast. That next summer, I'd continued to lose more weight, and I had downloaded Tinder. I had put some of the more like recent photos of me with hair or with a hat, and I was able to get some decent matches and go on some dates. I wasn't as lean as I am now in the face, so it wasn't like as many matches as I would get nowadays. But before, like I remember using Tinder like a year prior, or I think 2 years prior, and I had used some of the photos of me with like the comb over type look, and I can tell you, I got next to like no matches. Like I might have gotten a match like maybe once or twice a week, but it was never from someone like that I was interested in. But now that I was in good shape, I looked like I had a fuller head of hair. This just made a world of difference in how people treated me. And I think when I was also able to get my hair back, people also just assumed that I was their age. And I felt like I just fit into the college more. I felt like I was like another student. I wasn't like a middle-aged bald guy that they assumed I was like a club representative or professor. About 2 years later in 2017, I got a second hair transplant to just build out more density in the frontal zone. And I had gone to a really good doctor, and he really gave me a good result. Like this allowed me to pull off more hairstyles, such as the side part, spiking my hair up in the front, and just growing my hair out longer, like over the forehead. Like I have a lot more styleability now, and I look like I have a really full head of hair. And after I recovered from the second hair transplant, like I noticed an even like bigger difference in how women perceive me. Like by that time, I had also lost a significant amount of weight. So honestly, it was both being in better shape and getting my hair back that really made the difference. In general, though, I got way better results with women when I had hair as opposed to when I was balding, or when I had completely shaved my head bald. It's honestly just like a night and day difference for me. I think most guys, I think the vast majority of guys, honestly, I think all guys just look better with hair. Hair frames your face, it makes you look youthful, makes you look younger, makes you look more vibrant. And especially like younger women in their 20s and women in their 30s, 40s, they just prefer guys with hair. I know there's some exceptions out there that are for women that love bald guys, but usually those are the guys that have other, physical features and other qualities that like really make up for the lack of hair. Like I said, I know some guys that pull off the bald look better than others, but honestly, I just look better with hair, and I'm very happy that I went down the hair transplant route. If you're experiencing hair loss, you definitely want to evaluate all the options. You can decide to shave your head, and if you're comfortable, then more power to you. Like, you win in a way. You won't have your hair, but if you're comfortable, more power to you. You also have the option of going down the hair transplant route, and there are also hair systems that you can look into as well. Like, all in all, you have options when you're losing your hair, and you're definitely not alone. Like 80% of men experience some degree of hair loss by the time they're 35. Well, that's my take on the difference in treatment I received from being bald versus having hair. If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. Feel free to comment down below your experience being bald, and feel free to subscribe. Until next time, take care.